Hello and welcome to the Bond Revisited podcast with me, Tom.
And me, Joe.
After watching and ranking every James Bond film, we're now keeping up with all the latest Bond news, hoping one day we see the return of Sweaty Sean. It's actually been quite sweaty for us, I guess.
That's true.
Just to ground it, yeah. We have because we're a bit late. So obviously we're talking about First Light today. We're a bit late with it, but if we had done it last week, we would have been sweatier than Sweaty Sean, I think.
I think so, and I think the fans would have been whizzing in the background. But the thing is, the sad thing is, Tom, we would have been sweatier than Sean. Would we have looked as good? No chance.
No, not even combined. It would be. Yeah, he just had a way that he really. I was gonna make a pun about shining through the screen or something like that. I couldn't quite make that work. But he really stood out on screen. Although I guess, it's very sad that Sean's no longer with us, but maybe it was for the best if these are the heat waves we're going to get from now on. I can't. Surely there's like a point where he just explodes in sweat and it's all over.
Well, didn't he live in the Bahamas at the end of his life?
Oh, he might have done. Yeah, that sounds right.
He definitely left Scotland a long time ago. So I think, I think he was probably used to it. I mean, think of all the times we missed out on Sweaty Sean when he was just, walking around his house.
I know, that's true. That is very true.
I thought that sounds like I want to perv on Sean.
Well, you do. We know you do, and that's fine. There's a safe space for that.
No, that's too far.
I wonder if
for me.
Maybe. I was thinking though, like maybe if Pierce Brosnan does come back, all those weird rumors about like he could come back as like old Bond or something. If he will get like as sweaty as Sean did.
Oh,
like because he's older Bond, we get like sweaty Pierce.
What have I seen? He was in the Thursday Murder Club film. Was he sweaty in that? Can't remember.
I don't know. We'll have to check.
However, if he did came back as Bond, one thing I would like to see. Forget about the sweat. I need to see Brosnan's pain face. I need the pain face back. He has the best pain face.
Well, we could do both. We could do both.
True.
He starts sweating, the pain face kicks in. I don't know what scene that would be. Maybe we wouldn't want to see that, but in context. But we could do both. We could fit both in.
We've got so distracted already. This stupid
Instantly
intro
distracted.
It wrecks us every time.
The last thing I have written down is Sweaty Sean, and it's just like I can't let that go.
No,
we don't do the podcast enough for us to get it out of our system.
Well, hey, here's a nice transition. We may not have seen some Sweaty Sean, but we did see some sweaty young Bond in First Light.
Oh, well, that's not better though, is it?
No, what's the name of the guy? Patrick something.
Sweaty Gibson.
Patrick. That's not right.
Sweaty Patty.
Sweaty Patty.
Sweaty Patty.
Sweaty Patty. No, it doesn't work.
Yes. Okay, yeah, let's get back on track. So, James Bond. We have had the biggest release in 5 years. I think that's fair to say. With the release of First Light coming out in May. It's been about a month. We have been playing it. Let's be honest, we have not been playing it the whole time, but we have both beaten it. So now it's finally time for us to sit down. And obviously everyone's still waiting to see if the game's any good. They're just like, when are the guys going to bloody... I really want to play it, but I don't know.
I need to wait for Tom and Joe's opinion.
Yeah, they're the only ones that matter.
Quite right.
That's why I hate Diamonds Are Forever and Live and Let Die now, because they said they're no good.
Yes. Ours is the only
That was last
true way.
for you, wasn't it? That was last, right? That was your
Live and Let Die. It was.
Favorite?
Yes, it was.
Oh God, that's terrible. I forgot about that. That's terrible.
No, that's in the past. Forget about that.
We've done that now. Yeah, okay, so yes, we have been playing it, and we're going to dive in. Of course, this is going to be spoilers right out of the gate. It has been like a month or so, right? We do want to talk about everything, so we were going to do like a cut-off, but it's like, no, we're just going to go straight into it. It's a very casual conversation for us, and we want to talk about everything, so there definitely will be spoilers. We won't be marking anything off at any point. If we want to make a point, we are just going to make that point. But before going into the game itself, I actually think a congratulations is in order for you, Joe.
Really?
Because before it came out, we had a discussion and we
Oh,
said, where
yes.
would it land on Metacritic? And I went either 80 or 81. And you
Mhm.
said,
87.
and if you check, it actually was 87.
Is it still 87?
Oh,
Hang on. I'm gonna live check now. This is very
yeah.
professional, but I just need to
Or
check.
live lie.
I really hope so. It's still 87. Yes.
So you nailed it.
I completely nailed it.
So what's your secret?
I have insiders. What's that guy that everyone
okay,
talks to for Jason something? I'm best buds with
Jason
him.
Insider.
Yeah, Jason. Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess it was a mixture of optimism and just knowing how much people liked Hitman and being lucky.
Well, I think we both, I think the journey for us, I don't want to recap all of it, but for us, I think, or at least for me, I suppose, was excitement because, Bond game. Oh, Hitman people. Okay, that makes sense. And then for me, it was like this decline in excitement for a long time. And then the gameplay stuff had some cool stuff in, some not so cool stuff, and then kind of this continued to decline. But when First Light the song came out, I'm like, okay, I am totally ready for this. Actually, let's switch. Like, I'm still a little concerned, but I'm so down to play some Bond. And I guess just to go right off the bat, I think it's pretty excellent overall.
Oh,
If you're expecting this big Tom rants and complains for an hour about a thing that everyone likes and says it's bad. No, I mean, I'm going to do that. But I think it's totally fair. 87 makes a lot of sense to me. And I would overall say excellent video game, in my opinion.
okay. I was wondering, because this is the first time that we've spoke to each other about it. So we're hearing each other's reactions for the first time as well. And part of me did think, now I don't mean to critique you, Tom, but
Too right, yeah.
you have high standards, right?
Yeah.
You have high standards, and generally, no, that's not fair. You know what you're talking about when it comes to video games. And I was convinced that you were going to say that you thought it was fine, but then would, go into detail about all the things that would make it not great. But I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that you think that. Great.
Well, it's nice, right? Like, I mean, I will take that very generous take about me and the way I feel about things from you. I will definitely take that. But it is one of those where it's like last year in games, I thought was actually quite dreadful. And it was just a lot of people being like, have you played Claire, blah, 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 and Silkstar? And I just played a lot of mid games that I just thought were okay. And then I got to the end of the year being like, that sucked. That just like kind of sucked. And it sucks to be surrounded by these games that a lot of people like and I've played and I don't like. And it's just like, this hobby is just a bit draining and much. But this year it's just been so much better. Resident Evil 9 was fantastic. I think there's a lot of other games. I won't go into a ton of games, but like I've actually been able to play games and really enjoy them. And it does make me think like, no, this is what I was holding out for. First Light overall is excellent. And this is why I critique all this mid nonsense, because it deserves it. Because when a really good game comes along like First Light, I can be like, I really like this and I'm having a really good time and I'm glad. And that did very much make me happy. Like, it is just nice to sit down and just have this new game. Again, I'll pick it apart, or I'll have some of my complaints, but just to overall be like, what an excellent package, what a well-made thing, what a fully realized game that knows what it's about, that does all these different things well and comes together to just be like a really entertaining, great game. And it was just so nice to do that. Like, it was just so nice to do that, especially as just like a single player experience. So I came away very, very satisfied overall. But that's enough about me. Overall, Joe, let's kick this off. How are you feeling about the game high level?
Pretty much the same as you. So thank you everyone for listening.
Cool.
And
Dunzo.
that was quick. No, I think I didn't have that. I'm not as much of a gamer. I didn't have that baggage of playing mid games. I just play Minecraft. So
I thought you said you don't play mid games.
Right, that's it. Get out.
that's actually it, yeah.
You've upset me now. So when I played it, I was taking it as such face value of this is a Bond game that developers have clearly put a lot of love and effort into, and respected many different kind of avenues into it, from books and films and all sorts of stuff. And I was having fun. I was having a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. There's things I didn't love, and there's things that I think were actually pretty naff. But at an overall kind of experience, high level, as you say, it is exactly what I wanted it to be. And I think well worth the 5-year wait. Excellent game. And just seeing like the posters and the adverts for it, I saw like, billboards and on the screens on the underground and stuff. It was just so great to see a Bond game on those sort of screens. I mean, you don't really see Bond films on there very often now, but just to see a game, it was so cool. Be like, yeah. And yeah, going back home and playing it, or after work, most evenings, chipping away at the story. I had such a great time.
Yeah, I think there's always this thing with gaming that I think a lot of people are chasing, where, or at least I know I am, where there was such a big part of gaming was a new game came out and it felt like an event. It felt like everyone was talking about it. Everyone was more in sync. Everyone was kind of, gaming was this more impressive thing. I don't think it was held as higher standards. So when a big game came out, you felt it. When something like, I'm just even talking 360. You could go sooner than that. But I remember the 360 where you're like, Halo 3 has come out and everyone's like, whoa, that's crazy. And then you pick it up and you play it and you're having a great time and you're seeing it everywhere, like you're describing with First Light, and everyone's talking about it and you're playing it and it's got good reviews and you just kind of get like sucked into that. And I think like for me, a big part of gaming, or what I want out of AAA gaming, is something like that. And it probably is never gonna be that again, apart from GTA 6.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think First Light, like as you described, did capture a little bit of that, where people are kind of talking and stuff. It somewhat got ruined by this early access nonsense, which I don't really like, because to me, again, I want a game to feel like everyone coming together and playing it at the same time, and early access just kind of messes that up, but still not a huge deal. But there was definitely a little bit of that. I have to kind of admit, some of the stuff I have in my head about gaming feeling like a big event or a game feeling like an event is just going to be pure nostalgia for sure. But this kind of came close, and this is what I want out of AAA gaming. So it definitely ticked those boxes. Did you get the Coke Zeros, the James Bond Coke Zeros?
Never did find any in the end.
Did you know?
No.
Did you just never see them?
No, never saw them. I even went into Sainsbury's
Wow.
where I thought they might be. Still not.
So I went into Sainsbury's and they were there.
Okay, damn.
So they were a little bit more hidden though, because they do look like the normal Coke Zeros. And if you go into Sainsbury's or wherever now, they still have the same design, just without the 007 bit.
Right. So still black cans.
So, yeah, the black cans with the gold text.
Right. Okay.
So I bought 8 because it was a pack, and then I drank 6 of them, and then I've still got 2 in my cupboard. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I want them. I want to keep them. So I got a little memento in my cupboard. I got 2 cans. So we'll just see where that goes.
That's nice. Yeah.
They are cool. They did look cool.
Thanks for really rubbing it in. Do you think maybe I could still find some? eBay.
Oh, yeah. Joe, I got 2. You can have one.
Yay.
We'll try and figure that out.
But yeah, no, well, and what I was going to say, kind of you mentioning about like it feeling like a big event, totally agree. Adverts and all that sort of stuff. But even for me, the thing that I think really sold that was the fact that there was people talking about it, friends talking about it, that weren't Bond fans, but they were still talking about it or playing it even better. So, it wasn't just like this little, and I know Bond's not really a niche thing at all, but sometimes when I'm rambling about James Bond, you can just tell people switch off or they don't care. So, like Tom, or everyone listening.
That's such a sad thing to say.
But the fact that other people were saying to me, like, "Oh, Joe, have you seen that Bond game?" And I'd be like, "Yes," and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, my girlfriend's playing it, my boyfriend's playing it, or whatever." I'm like, "That's so cool." People have never brought up Bond before, and it's reached that level where it's means a lot to a Bond fan, but also it's just a game. It's just a video game now, right? It's just a game that's been really well advertised, and people are wanting to play it. So that was very pleasant to see.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that is just what happens when a non-Bond, every Bond film comes out. Though, to be fair,
True.
we just haven't had it in so long. Like when
True.
No Time to Die came out, everyone was talking about it, especially in the UK. I think what is it? It's like the top 3 highest grossing films in the UK ever. It's like Skyfall, No Time to Die, Avatar. So like, especially over here, like everyone obsessed about it. Like, yeah, No Time to Die, I think has outgrossed like every single Marvel film here in the UK. It's just that big and popular.
Oh wow.
So there is that feeling definitely in the UK. So again, I think what you experienced with First Light, that does happen. We just haven't had it in like 5 years.
I'm starved. Yeah.
So no one's talked to you for 5 years, which is very sad.
Oh God, stay away from him. He just talks about Roger Moore all the time.
Oh, For Your Eyes Only is underrated. Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Joe.
We're going now.
Oh, Moonraker's got good bits. All right, cool, Joe. Didn't ask. Right, let's get into some specifics, though.
Okay.
And I know where I want to begin.
Please do.
And that's with Bond himself. Or more specifically, Patrick Gibson. Because as you know, one of my big concerns is that when I looked at the man, I was like, that's not James Bond. And I went into it still being like, that's not James Bond to me. And I think something I was very pleasantly surprised about is that, you know, when I still see him on a poster, I'm still like, I'm not that convinced. But playing the game and in the context of the game, I think he does like an incredible job and sells it incredibly well. There's like certain things I could pick apart, but as a whole, I actually found him way more convincing in the game itself as they were trying to tell the story and how that all connected together. And I think that worked very well as a young Bond and him playing that young Bond. And that works 10 times better than simply taking him and saying, look at Bond on a poster. I'm like, no, that doesn't really work. And the marketing never really worked. But I was surprised at how convincing he was in this story. And it made 10 times sense that this is James Bond to me as I was playing the game.
Okay. I was curious about how you'd feel. Was there a question for that? Follow-up question. Was there like a point in the game where that sort of clicked for you specifically?
Well, no, not really. That's the interesting
over the course
thing.
of the game.
It's over the course of the game. It's the fact that you see him, like the very first mission is Iceland, and he's not a secret agent or anything. His hair is all shaved down, and he's just very much he's a recruit. He's very early on. He's got some of the Bond tendencies in terms of his mentality, right, which is what you want to see. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have all that polish or anything like that. But the fact that you see him in that state, and then you see him kind of progress, and you see that progression of him being like kind of a nobody who then like is the right person at the right time, who then, joins the 00 program and then trains through that program. And then you see some of that cocky personality come through because you get to see that get built in like real time as you play the game. I think that's what made me convinced. To be honest, I don't think there were that many very good Bond moments from the guy. I can't really think of that many off the top of my head, but I think because you get to see that progression, if it had just started as actually like, I guess as an origin story, it works really well because you get to see that. And maybe if it wasn't an origin story, I actually would be complaining a lot more. But because it is, it convinces you over time. And then it kind of sold it on me. So again, I don't really have a good moment for it, but the fact that I get to see him in Iceland and then go through that progression, I think actually works like way better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah. I think same reason for me as well. I mean, I feel the same. To me, that was Bond, like playing as Bond through the game. And I think mainly just because of, like the storyline and how they did do that origin story and him training with the others and beginning his journey. I also like how they didn't do it exactly like a 00 sort of, Casino Royale style where you got to kill 2 people and all that sort of stuff. It was just, here's a young guy and now he's going to be a spy. There you go. There is a thing though, like I really liked the Bond character in this game, and I really liked Patrick Gibson's acting as Bond. Thought he had a really good way of delivering lines, and yeah, really encapsulated the character very well. There was a couple of things I did have problems with though when it came to Bond himself, and I'm just
Okay.
curious whether any of these ring true to you as well. First one is I don't know what it is. Well, I know I do know what it is. The model of Bond in this game, generally fine, apart from one thing, which is his mouth. And I could not
Mm.
get over in all the cutscenes. He just has this weird smirk in pretty much every cutscene. And once I saw it, I kind of fixated on it, and it kind of annoyed me. It's just if they'd have just made this one tiny little change of his mouth, I think it would have it would have been fine. I don't know what it was. It's just this really strange expression for a lot of the game. That's
Well,
one.
this is what we saw in the marketing, right? And it was like something that was quite off-putting, where just every time they were like, "And here's James Bond," and he comes out like, like all smirky, and it made him like seem more cocky and stuff. Where it was this like mismatch where you're like, "Well, I don't think you look like Bond," and you're standing there being like, and it just didn't really work. But I guess that's what they were going for. I mean, as I played the game, I think I kind of moved past that.
Okay.
But I completely agree. Like when you like so much of the marketing was him doing that smirk, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't look very good. It doesn't really connect in the same way. And like other Bonds, I think are better at. They all smirk, but it's not. It's earned, I suppose.
Yeah. When you're
Uh,
smirking 100% of the time, it doesn't mean anything. After saying a quip, sure, but it's just smirking nonstop.
yeah.
Anyway, that was that was one thing, and the second thing, this might be a bit controversial. I don't know, but as I was playing the game, personally, I felt like they were cramming in too many quips from Bond. He was just talking way too much, and in the one-liner responses to things, and I was just getting a little bit fatigued by it. It's true. It's true.
So you just mean like during gameplay,
Yes.
you would just quip a bit too much?
Yes. Personally, that's how I felt.
Okay, that's interesting. I thought they did that quite well. But a lot of that was because I felt like a lot of the quips were a bit more subtle's not the word, but it wasn't like the big cringe-worthy Bond line. Like, oh, absolutely shocking. Like that is a great line. It's very enjoyable. But if he was doing that all the time, then you would just be like, okay, fine, calm it down. But I felt like they did tone down that stuff for his quips.
Yeah.
So they weren't quite as like punny as they normally would be. So I think for me that kind of balanced it out, where it just felt like Bond enjoying himself and just throwing out lines. Because I don't think he really had any of those. He did a ton of quips, but I don't think any of them was quite as direct as like they'll print anything these days. Like it didn't quite go that far, if you know what I mean.
Maybe apart from a couple of occasions where it's like that feels earned when it's like, I don't know, the boss fight or something, or some big action
the
scene.
bosses, yeah.
Sure enough, that's okay. But yeah, I don't know, it's just something I felt maybe. Yeah, I think again, it's one of those things where I just once I noticed it, I probably just focused on it too much. But overall, I really enjoyed Bond in this game, and I did feel like I was playing as Bond, mainly because of the way that they kind of wrote the story around that character.
Yeah, I think the narrative is what does the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily Patrick Gibson doing this amazing performance. He does a good performance, and I think there's some good moments, but like, yeah, it's the way the narrative builds it up. And I kind of hinted at it earlier, but in terms of those Bond moments, like you get, I don't know, I guess you get Bond set pieces, but in terms of Bond doing the thing and being a cool guy or whatever, I can't really think of all that much. Again, I guess it's more set pieces. It's more like here is a set piece that you would expect in a Bond film or Bond game, but it's less about those smaller moments that feel very Bond. Like Piers Brosnan adjusting his tie in the tank, like that
right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they really. Maybe I'm just forgetting, but I feel like that element really wasn't here. So there is no one moment where I'm like, "Oh, that's James Bond," which maybe it was a smart choice, but it feels I can't really think of anything like that in this game.
No, and I think what works in its favor though is that any moments that do feel like you feel like a suave agent is usually bits not in a cutscene or something. It's usually bits in the gameplay where you've done one of the levels in a particular, like the narrative choices you got to do things differently. You've done one and it's been like, I don't know, disguising yourself as someone or tricking someone, and that's been the moments where I've been like, oh, that felt really good. That felt really satisfying. It wasn't in a cutscene. It was actually something you were controlling yourself to an extent. So that's even better. So that's fine not to have them in, those like little moments you're referring to, I'd say.
But how do I know it's a Bond moment if 007 doesn't come up on screen and it goes bala bala?
True.
I'm just confused.
Don't worry, they'll patch it in for you. They'll add a patch.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, we'll mod it.
Yeah,
you are Bond now. Clap.
We've released the Bond patch. Finally.
I was going to say. Oh no, go on.
Okay. Yeah. No. I was. Yeah. You go on.
Well, I guess moving on from Bond slightly, one of the other things I've put as very good in my notes, probably the best thing about this game. Well, I don't know if that's true, but I thought this is a bit of overarching term, but I thought the presentation of this game was top notch. And the moment I started the game, press start, through to the end, it felt like a proper cinematic experience. And many reasons for that. You could go into everything about the music and just the visuals, which are very nice, and the plot. But just even down to things like, the way it transitions from a level to what is actually a loading screen, but it's just Moneypenny doing the debrief, and then smoothly back into the opening cutscene of the next level. It just felt so seamless, so polished. It sounds kind of cheesy to say, but it did feel like I was in a movie to an extent, which I just loved.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is somewhat of an unrelated point, but I feel like that delay was very much needed to kind of get that level of polish in there.
Yeah.
Because I did notice some bugs and some issues, which kind of took me out of it a little bit. Not massively, the very minor stuff. But I feel like what you're kind of describing and these things like bugs, that was probably achieved because of that delay. Where like the whole presentation style would have been the same if it hadn't been delayed. But I definitely felt like, okay, they actually were able to polish a lot of this stuff out and get it to where it needed to be, because they weren't rushing it to get it out before GTA 6. So I think those extra 2 months were like very much needed. And even then I still saw bugs here and there. Like some of the subtitles were wrong. And
any funny
like
ones?
But again,
any good bloopers?
Not really, no. Just like kind of those odd little things that you get with big games nowadays.
Okay.
But I could definitely imagine like that kind of the presentation style would have been the same, but I think we would have got a lot more of these kind of issues that would have broken that kind of movie feel and sense of like, achieving that sort of style. Because I did kind of feel like, okay, I could see a few bugs here, and I could imagine there would be like 10 times more if they didn't give it that delay to give it that level of polish. So they did achieve that, absolutely. But you could kind of feel personally, I could feel like how close they were. Like it felt like they already just got there and really needed that.
Just time. Over the line.
Yeah, just about. So I did want to go back to kind of some of the early story stuff.
Yeah.
So we won't be breaking down every single level. We won't be breaking down the entire story. But of course, the early stages that you are in Iceland. And I did want to ask you something about the story, if you remember. Bond like injects himself with like 2 things early on.
Yeah.
Where he's like talking to Moneypenny, and then she's like, only inject one of them, and then he injects both to get the cure. What the hell was all that about?
I was wondering whether you'd bring this up, because I had the same question. And especially after finishing the game, I thought, well, hang on a minute, that happened all the way back then.
Wait a minute.
And I've since read something that sort of, I don't know where I read it. Maybe it was on Reddit, but someone trying to explain it. I didn't really love the explanation, but it was basically that one of the injections was the antitoxin stuff, and the other one was a God, what was the other one? Something that made him pass out, like, and that was it.
Okay.
But so the really boring explanation, like, oh, that's why he survived, but he also why he also passed out. But I felt exactly the same way, which is like, oh, they made a point of that, and then I thought I was like, do not go down the nanobot route, for the love of God, please, no more nanobots. But I thought it would be something like that. I really did.
I thought it felt a bit Spectre-y to me. Where it kind of like, where you get stabbed with the needle or in the brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like something kind of happens and then it never gets followed up on, and it felt very odd. I'm assuming there is an explanation, but like that cold opening where you're in Iceland, it kind of sets up Bond quite well. But then the story stuff, I don't know. I can't remember. I guess maybe that's the sign of a good Bond story. That actually I don't remember some of these specific details in terms of the big scheme and the big plot. I remember the villains, I remember kind of roughly what happens, but actually some of these details I just don't quite remember, and they don't quite make sense in my head. And that feels very James Bond. So I guess mission accomplished in some ways.
Think of all the times we were trying to do the rankings and reviews, and like how many times did we just lose track or just not care by the end of it? Like, the stories
I don't know.
Yeah, like when you actually try and explain. Remember, we're trying to explain Octopussy. My goodness,
that was a nightmare.
That was a real nightmare. Living nightmare.
Yeah. So I guess it's good we're not trying to explain this story.
I mean, I will say that the story. I did say that I liked the aspect of Bond in the storyline and the narrative with Bond, but I do have a lot of issues with the storyline as a whole.
Okay, and let's get into that though.
Okay, sure.
Because I think I might agree with you on some of these points. I guess we'll see where we go. My first kind of thing that I felt was odd is that they killed like everyone in the 00 program straight away.
Yes,
that's it was really comical. So there's like a mission where the whole beginning of the game you are training up with all these agents, and then they make a point of 2 of them, which is like very smart thing to do. And they are setting you up, so it's very sad when they go, or something happens to them. But then, like, literally, Bond goes to a chess tournament, and then they blow up the building, and it kills all the 00 agents, apart from 1. And you're like, what? Why were they all there? Like, this just, like, oh my God. It made it seem so amateur. It was such a silly thing. That like they had this whole thing where Greenway is like, don't send in all the agents, and they're like, we're gonna send in all the agents, and then they all blow up in one thing. It's like is it Zoolander or something where like all the models get blown up at the start?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm thinking of that or like another film where it's just like, oh, everyone's dead. Oh no, whoops.
Yeah,
and it felt like it just like they wanted it just to be Bond. They wanted the 00 program to just be Bond. And their solution was to blow them all up in a chess tournament. But it just made them seem so incompetent that I was like, well, this is silly. It was a very silly moment for me. I could not get that invested into it.
It was silly. I mean, it was silly for that reason. Like, it's just kind of ludicrous that everyone would die apart from Bond. And it's also silly because it's a waste of some of the characters. I think it's fair enough to do that with like Monroe was obviously that one of the standout ones to die.
Yeah.
Fair enough to do that at some point. I did think it was a bit too quick to kill him off. But yeah, just the fact that every single one, when I went back and replayed that mission to do challenges and stuff, I just walk around that hotel and just be like, oh, you're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. And it's like, you see like, you see not even that much, right? Their names, like Kingsley, I think was one of their names and stuff like that. You see them obviously during the training bit, but then they're all just dead. And yeah, I do agree that was a bit stupid.
Yeah, it was just unnecessary. I think they just wanted Bond to be the only 00 agent active, which has never really been the case with the films. Like, of course, the films don't focus on the other agents, but there's always been this thing of like there are other agents when they need to. But it was never supposed to be Bond is the only one. And they already had separated Bond out quite aggressively with the way he's getting stuff done. So it was just very silly. And also something I didn't really like about that section is that something this game does a lot is take old Bond phrases and then insert them into this game. And I think some of them work quite well. This one felt a little bit forced because the whole phrase they associate with Monroe is "we have all the time in the world," which of course is a very classic, famous line because it's used in on Her Majesty's Secret Service and then back again in No Time to Die. And he like says it, I think, when he's alive. And then the mission is called "All the Time in the World." And then I think it gets said again after he dies. It's like, "Oh, we have all the time in the world." I'm like, dude, this is not... like, I get it. You're not being subtle at this point. And that kind of annoyed me because it kind of felt like... I like the fact that they got these references in, but this is supposed to be an emotional moment. And you're kind of taking the emotional moment of Bond's wife dying, which is one of like the most emotional, best scenes in the franchise, and then also the emotional moment of Bond literally dying in No Time to Die, and you're taking that and saying, Monroe's dead! No! We don't have all the time in the world anymore! Boo-hoo! And that felt a little bit forced to me. That whole kind of section, it's like, the Iceland stuff is great, the training with all the agents is great, and then you kind of get this really messy section with what happens with the double O's, and it's kind of, yeah, definitely a weak point in the story overall.
Yeah, because Monroe says it when you like rescue him, when he's climbing down the bridge bit, right? And they get the flag and it goes wrong, and you're in the boat and you come and pick him up. And that makes total sense in that situation. They've just got out in the nick of time, so he's saying all the time in the world. Ha ha ha. But you're right. They didn't need to kind of do it twice more to really push it. Yeah, you're right. Actually, thinking about how they've tried to connect that to Bond's wife literally dying in his arms, not quite the same. Not
the same as Monroe dying. Sadly.
No.
So again, like I think early story stuff, I would say with the Iceland stuff, I don't know if you agree. Overall, very good, and then all the training stuff, overall, very good story wise. Thumbs up.
I mean, like the training stuff was. I know we're verging into a bit of gameplay stuff here, but the fact it was like an interactive training montage, I had not seen that before. So interesting, and I liked it, yes.
Yeah, I think that training montage, if there's one thing I hear from people or you hear people bring up where you're like, did you play it? It's like, oh yeah, it's really good. There's this really cool training montage. Like that feels like it's the absolute standout kind of moment because it's so early on and it is just very well done. It is like a film montage that you're playing and you actually get better at it, which is really cool. Like it's really smartly designed and put together.
Mm-hmm.
So what then happens next? Like I'm gonna have to bring up the level list. So we go from everyone's dead. Is it then to thingy, the
Mauritania? Yes, a big Bavma land, Aleph.
Aleph, yeah. And this was quite I guess like this whole section is, oh my god, I don't remember names of people.
Greenway?
What's the Pirate King.
Bavma.
Yeah, Bavma. I mean he was very entertaining, I guess I would say.
Was he?
Yeah, wasn't it? Like he gave a good speech.
Oh, I don't know. I mean my worries about our jokes about bloody Lenny Kravitz when he was announced. I think that was fair because I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Unless, well, not unless because I know they are doing more with Bavma in like their roadmap stuff that they've announced. But what a stupid waste of a character, and he can't. I'm sorry, but he cannot. Maybe he can act. Maybe he can voice act Lenny Kravitz, but he should not have voice acted that character. I did not get that character at all.
Really that's interesting because basically that character is just the one scene, right? Bond's been captured, Greenway's been captured, and he does a big speech about Pirate Town or whatever. And I actually thought he did quite a good job because he wasn't too over the top, he wasn't too kind of animated. He kind of gave that more reserved menace performance is kind of how I remember it, where he kind of doesn't have to do it. He just has these like specific moments where he does something a bit crazy. But other than that, he's kind of a bit more actually soft spoken than you would expect. So that I think that's all you kind of really need from someone like that. He's not the main villain, but personally, I thought he ticked the box. I thought he was surprisingly good.
Okay.
Even though, yeah, he was very like it was one or two scenes, and that's kind of all you got. That's probably all you really needed because he wasn't that important in the grand scheme of things.
No, definitely not in the main storyline. As I say, maybe there's going to be more. I think it's an interesting character. So I'd be keen to find out more about him in this expansion thing or extra DLC that they're going to do. But yeah, just over too quickly. And I think for me, whenever I looked at the character, it's like, yeah, that's Lenny Kravitz. That's like a Hollywood celebrity. I don't buy him as this pirate lord, of the criminal underworld here in Mauritania. So, but I'm glad you liked him because we both made fun of him. So at least one of us enjoyed the character.
Well, I guess maybe I just I know who that guy is, but not that much. So when I looked at him, I didn't get that same, oh, that's Lenny. I didn't kind of get that in the same way.
Right.
So I was able to get a bit more lost in it, I think, which probably helped.
Good.
Yeah, so it's basically like around this time where it's about 009. And I thought like the 009 hook was pretty good, right? It kind of made a lot of sense. About like you're chasing down an agent that has gone rogue. And I guess to jump ahead a bit, if the whole story had just been that, maybe it would have been a bit weaker. But I think as a hook, I actually didn't see where this was going in terms of where it was going with 009, which I actually did think that worked quite well because people were kind of guessing like Greenway's going to be the bad guy. When actually it was more about this 009 story when Greenway, and then that developed further. I'm trying not to jump ahead too soon. But I think that in terms of that mystery angle, I guess that's what I liked about it, where they then had to introduce of like what's really going on, and they used 009 as the hook. And I think with a Bond story, that's very important. You do need that era of mystery and trying to figure things out. And I think they did a pretty good job with that, using 009 as the traitor and what really went down.
Yeah, I liked the rogue agent hook as well, and I think what added to it, I think it would have been fine just to have a rogue agent. I mean, that is something that's tried and tested in the Bond universe, but I think what was like an added element on top was the whole connection to Greenway. So it's this, you got Bond seeing Greenway as a father figure almost in this training, but then also this connection between this rogue agent and Greenway, and there's that mysterious background that they don't really talk about too much. Was it like Nightfall, Operation Nightfall? So I liked that. I thought they were kind of stringing everything together quite nicely. I do think later on, when it comes to the plot as a whole, they just tried to do too much. But the way the game started with this 009 stuff, I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm trying not to jump to that point, right? Because basically this is all building up to a moment. And I guess maybe we should just jump there where you're kind of in. So Bond has been trained up. 009 is this rogue agent. You try to stop him. He killed everyone. And then you try and track him down. And then when you get to this place, he has been murdered. And then he's left some clues. So it seems like something bigger is kind of going on, which is why you then next go to London, or Bond goes to London after the pirate town. And basically finds out that, 009 was framed. And along all of this, there's Thea. Is that what it's called? Thea?
Oh yeah, the
AI?
supercomputer. Yeah.
Yeah, Thea, I want to say. I can't remember if it's Thea or Thea, but like I'll say Thea. Is like this MI6 AI, and it turns out that's evil. Well, not really, but the guy who designed it, Nicholas Webb, is actually the bad guy and has been using. The AI doesn't work properly, so him and his son Damien has been like fixing its mistakes so they could kind of stay in control of it and hide all of its kind of flaws. And I liked the reveal in the moment. It was nice to kind of get that reveal of 009 wasn't evil, especially because they set it up where Greenway had this personal connection, and I think they do that very well. And then, to kind of I guess it works well because it's how it impacts Greenway, who at first doesn't like Bond, but then he grows to like him, which sounds very samey, but they do it really well. honestly. So it works because of that, and it works because of a big reveal. But I think for me personally, it sets up the story down a path that just isn't that interesting. Because what it really means is that Nicholas Webb and Damien are the villains, and they're just not very good villains in the slightest. But they kind of then take over the plot for the most part for the rest of the game, and I just think they're just too weak to kind of do that.
Yep, they're terrible. They're terrible.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah, terrible, yeah.
I feel like the game, as I say, I think the game tries to do too much with its storyline, and I think it could have done 2 of these things, or yeah, I don't know. I've put 3 main tenets of the plot. 2 of them are the main ones. There's sort of a third one that's hinted at along the way. Rogue Agent 009. Big bad evil Bond villain of Webb and Damien and the supercomputer. And then you've also got the sort of femme fatale mystery woman along the way who dips in and out. Who is she? Does she work for another organization? Blah, 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 blah. That's too much. That's too much, I think. Particularly the big bad henchman element, big baddie, being tied to the supercomputer, which I think if they just stopped there, fine. Everyone knows about AI now. It's kind of, big AI computer that's messed up and they have to try and fix things. That's okay. But they just had to take it one step too far. And I don't know whether you had this same experience in one of the levels, jumping way ahead now. I think it might be the last level. Or maybe when they're in the Antarctica region, the R&D building. But there's this scene where I forgot her name now. Who is the mysterious lady? She has got a name.
Oh, don't do this to me, Joe.
No, I wrote it down. Hang on. Isola.
Okay.
Isola.
Isola.
Her and Bond are just walking along this. No, sorry, I take it back. It's Bond and Moneypenny. It's Bond and Moneypenny. And they just start talking about quantum entanglement. And I was sat there thinking, what the hell am I listening to? Is this meant to be a Bond game? It honestly just sounded like pure sci-fi nonsense, as you would say. Gobbledygook. Like Star Trek gobbledygook. And I was like, why are they taking this turn with the plot to start talking about this quantum entangled other computer called Hyperion? And they just really muddled it too much for me by the end of this plot with Webb. They just did way too much.
I actually, thinking about it, I know exactly what you're talking about because, but like they have to make this big logical jump where basically Bond has to realize that actually there's a second AI computer that he needs to go over. So basically, like after that reveal, it then all gets very messy where Bond kind of goes rogue or has to go rogue because officially they're working with Webb and everything's fine. So like MI6 officially can't work with Bond. So he kind of goes rogue, but then he has to have this moment where it's like, wait a minute, there's a second one. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And then that conversation with Moneypenny is him being like, no, there's definitely a second one because Hyperion is like a name from Greek mythology, meaning the brother, and that's how he would he would control fear with his other supercomputer because he wouldn't be able to monitor us so well if he didn't have a second one or something. And yeah, it gets very messy, but it feels like there's a point where they basically wrap up the story and then it kind of keeps going in an odd way. And it feels like a big part of the problem is just it's just not a villain story. It's just not. Like, it's just not a villain story. And in some ways that's fine because I think there are good Bond films that aren't villain films. You know, there are villain Bond films and there are ones that aren't. No Time to Die is not a villain Bond film, which is why to me, I'm not that bothered by Safin or whatever it's called being a bit rubbish, because to me that is not a villain Bond film. I would even argue Spectre isn't, but let's not get into that. So I think this totally would have been fine as not being a villain Bond film, but then, well, what does it have instead? Well, it has this really messy plot about AI that you have to kind of stay invested in, and then it's the female agent and what she's doing then becomes the thing you care about. But we're just doing the whole Bond's gone rogue and he's not with MI6 anymore and he's now doing his own thing. But it's like, okay, but he only just joined, so that doesn't feel like that big of a deal, I guess. This doesn't feel that out there, considering. So it just gets a little bit messy. I don't think the story ever gets bad. I never got to the point where I was groaning at the story. But it's like they have the Webb is the main villain, and then his son Damien is like the henchman, but also a villain. And he's the guy in the gold mask.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you about this before we hit record. I was like, wasn't this supposed to be like a cool mystery? Like, who's behind the mask? And it's like, it's Damien. It's like, Damien? No, it couldn't be Damien. And it's just like, who's Damien? And then, like, he's the final boss.
Twice.
And you fight him, you fight him multiple times in the story, and he's the final boss in like a robot suit with a gold mask. And it's like, there's just no real connection here. He's just the crazy bad guy with nothing that interesting about him. And
he's not even in the gold mask that much. That's the crazy thing too.
Not really. You see him once in Pirate Town. Yeah, and then it's like, oh, that's Damien. It's freaking Damien over here. But he does wear it for the final boss, I think, in his big suit, at least. But there's just like, I think the final boss really reinforced this idea of just like, there is no connection to the villain. And I think what a good Bond film kind of does is establish a connection between Bond and the villain. Whether that's just like Goldfinger, where they're just sitting around and chatting. Obviously, him being locked up for a long time is weird, but like he instantly, in 5 minutes of that film, Bond is like annoys the guy and he gets back at him, and then the whole film is them going back and forth. They establish a connection. This is like, there's so much stuff going on. Bond trains, which has nothing to do with any of this, and then all the agents die, which you would assume at some point he'll be like, I'll get you, Damien, for killing my friends. Nope.
No, yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Nope.
He's not that fast at that point. They don't kind of really establish that, and then and you would assume there would be, because this is meant to be an origin story where you're supposed to realize this is how Bond became Bond. But how Bond became Bond had nothing to do with these people. They just happened to be the ones being like, I have two AIs. Meh, meh. And it just kind of falls down because of that. Again, I don't think the story ever really gets bad, but when you try and break it down, it does a really good job as setting things up as here is a younger Bond and seeing him kind of, become Bond in a lot of ways. It does that well, and it has really good moments, especially everything with Greenway I think is excellent, and I think Greenway is the standout character. But if you're trying to make me care about these villains in this Bond origin story, then it's just like mission failed. Like, absolutely. Like, no, I do not care about Damien in his gold mask.
And his wonderful hair. Oh.
Well, it is great. Yeah, it's definitely great hair. Yeah.
Definitely great hair. Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think I'm looking at all the list of levels, and I've kind of put what they roughly were. And from, even before then, really, I think from the Greenway revelation about 009 and yeah, like, at that point he says, that's it, I'm out, and then you have to, like you say, go rogue on your own for a little bit, and then eventually you reunite with him in the quarry after the Vietnam section. I think up until that point, and then when Greenway dies, I think is a great section of story, really. It's really those last couple levels, I think, just really muddy the water for me. It's almost, I think I've seen some comments saying that this game has a few too many points where it sort of feels like the end but keeps going. And I don't know if I'd strictly agree with that, because I think I like how much there was to play, and it's not a massively long game by any means, so I definitely wouldn't have wanted it to stop sooner. But I just think that the pacing of it was not quite right towards the end, and maybe that's why it feels more like it's, like the sort of Lord of the Rings thing, where it's like, it's the end. No, there's a bit more, and then, there's a bit more, and then now you're in the null space and you're getting attacked, and there's another bit with Damien. That bit just felt a bit plodding. The levels before that,
I think it's that last mission, I think, when you're in London, when you've been arrested. So, you've gone to the big villain base, right? You've gone to the villain base and you've done your whole thing. And then they kind of insert this extra bit where Bond's like arrested, but then they attack MI6. And, that's a big deal. Like, the world is not enough. Use that as like a whole kickoff of the entire film. And it was a huge deal that that happened. And even in Skyfall, it was a pretty big deal. Maybe not big enough of a deal, but it had a real point to it. And this just felt very arbitrary, just to kind of keep it going, so you could have one last fight with Damien. But again, I think what saves the story for me is Greenway, his story, him working with Bond. On paper, it's very like stereotypical film stuff, but I think it's very well acted. I think the dialogue between those two is very well done, and the way Greenway kind of has his progression and comes back into the field and is, realizing who he is and what he wants to do and trying to right the past and fix his mistakes and deal with that, and bouncing off Bond while doing it and kind of having that progress. That's the anchor of the story. If this isn't a villain story, then it is more about Bond and his mentor and going through that progression. And I don't think they quite, him when he dies, I think it's well done. I really, that probably is one of the best scenes in the game when he dies, because they are just very casually talking and then he just goes. But again, you kind of then like, that doesn't really feed into anything else, because it's not like, I'll get you, Damien, because Greenway's dead. It's just like, no, it's just Damien, dude. He's just still here. There's like a real lack of kind of connection with that stuff and everything else that is going along. But I think that stuff is good enough that it kind of anchors it in a way that I would still say I like the story. It's just very easy to pick apart the things that just don't work, which is Damien.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, and I should point out that it wasn't as if I was sitting there playing the game and just pausing every few minutes being like, this is stupid, I hate this. The only one time I say was when they were started, it was just the phrase quantum entanglement, and that just really just kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. I was like, why? But the rest of it, yeah, I think you're right. Like, it all just sort of, it moves whether you like it or not, and then you just sort of get caught up in it and you just carry on playing the game and enjoying the gameplay. So that's fine. And just going back to Greenway again, because I agree, I really liked Greenway. I was a bit unsure of him at the beginning, the training section, and how this character was going to be. I thought, they're just going to make him like the grumpy guy, and he was grumpy. Don't get me wrong, very grumpy, but they navigated that relationship well, and I think a testament to that is the level called Nightfall, which starts off with you and Greenway breaking into Web Industries. It's not a particularly interesting start to the game, start to the level in terms of gameplay and stuff. You're really just snooping around an empty building, opening some locked doors. And the thing that actually kept it going for me was the little bit of banter and just the chemistry between Bond and Greenway as you're walking around all these corridors. And yeah, it's just stuff like that they got really right. It's just some other stuff that they got really wrong with Damien, basically.
Yes, and I think there was a real focus on the pacing. Like the pacing was very intentional, and it was very like, it starts quiet and then it ramps up and a lot's going on, and maybe you get another smaller quiet moment and then it kind of ramps up again, and then it will very intentionally crash back down and reset, and you'll get those quieter moments and then it kind of bounces back up. And it felt very deliberate in the way it did that, and I think it did that extremely well. And Nightfall, the beginning of Nightfall is probably a very good example of that. Of, a lot had just happened the mission before, and now you're kind of doing something quieter, and then that builds up and it gets crazy, and it ends with the big chase, but then that kind of goes quiet as well. So there's very intentional ebbs and flows, which was like expertly done, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So let's tick off the other characters then.
Okay.
So I want to give kudos to Q. At first, I wasn't super convinced, but I think I actually thought it was very good. And it probably does come down to that Greenway scene again, after Greenway passes. And it almost feels out of nowhere where Q just says, like, let's have a drink, and he gives Bond some advice. But, like, the dialogue was really well written. The voice acting was, like, perfect, exactly what it needed to be. And after that scene, I was like, hell yeah, Q.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah.
Yeah. I loved how they did Q. I thought I was so not relieved, because I think I would have still liked it to an extent if they just made him, the grumpy guy who's don't break my things, Bond, and blah blah blah. But you have to kind of get to that stage anyway. It would be weird if that was straight off the bat like that relationship. But they didn't do that. They went with this very classy, very stylish silver fox of a Q, And like you say, yeah, you have this real nice moment, touching moment, and it doesn't outstay his welcome. He's not irritating. Has a few nice little kind of references, and just there's enough of the Q recipe in that character, but it's just a refreshing take on the character, and I loved it. I thought Q was done very well.
Yeah, it doesn't really do anything differently. It's not like kind of a bold new direction for Q. It's just like, hey, yeah, that's Q. And across the game, I think it ticks enough boxes where he's convincing. And I think that's probably important, especially because it is a younger Bond. So it does kind of make sense that you would want someone like that. And yeah, again, I wasn't expecting all that much, but yeah, very well done. Very nice. And it kind of helps that you spend so much time in Q Lab as well. So you do kind of get like absorbed in that world and have that moment of walking around as well, which helps a ton. But then, like, yeah, just that scene where he has that moment with Bond, it's just like really nice and touching. So it kind of was really not, and that's kind of all I needed, I suppose. That's at the end of the day, maybe all I needed. So yes, I think Q gets a big thumbs up.
How
If I have
about
to rank my characters, Greenway's number one, then probably I guess Bond. I guess you have to, and then I guess Q is going to come under that in terms of performances.
you can't stop your ranking, can you?
I just love it. So
You love it so
put
much.
it in a list. Check it twice.
What about M? Where is she on your ranking?
So I
then?
thought M was actually the worst of the cast. Not like particularly bad, but just a bit. I don't know. It feels like, yeah, a bit forgettable. She kind of jumps all over the place. We kind of get a lot of like, it just feels like it's trying to be Judi Dench's Bond, but without the kind of complex relationship that's built into Judi Dench's Bond and Bond. That kind of is a bit more effortless in the films. And this felt a little bit more forced and almost half-assed at the same time, where she's just like, yeah, I just didn't think she was that great. I just feel like, yeah, because Judi Dench and the Daniel Craig films did such a good job of establishing that relationship and having it progress, them doing like a half-hearted version of that just felt really weak. So I didn't really think she was bad, but I just didn't find her very convincing throughout the game.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with you. Forgettable to me, and I think the problem, as we talk more about Greenway, I think the problem is that Greenway was a character in this game and a good character, and I think there's a lot of what could have worked well for an M in Greenway, but it made total sense for them to split that out into character so that they can, for example, kill them off. But that sort of idea of, like you said, the Judi Dench element of relationship and the mentor and the trust, that's kind of what's done through Greenway. So M is just left a little bit in the background, and yeah, she comes up every now and then, and you do get. I like how you get the idea of one of my favorite things with M, and I think one of my favorite M scenes is in Moonraker, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, where they've.
Well, I know what you're going to say, and you are correct.
Yeah,
so,
you know, that,
all mocking
little,
aside, it's a very good scene.
The little nudge, nudge, wink, wink that M gives to Bond to say, go on, go to Rio, carry on your thing. We'll keep it under wraps. And there's sort of parts of that in this game. Obviously, not as well done. It's a completely different genre, but that was good to see. I kind of maybe. I would have. It would be nice if there was more of that, but there's only so many characters, only so much time you can really devote to everyone. So I can understand why. But yeah, it just kind of meant M was just a little bit meh in the end. That's what M stands for. Meh.
Meh. Yeah, again, it hits hard as well because the very last scene of the game is Bond and M standing over Greenway's grave, and then she's all like, I guess you're 001. And then he's like, well, I'm going to be 007. And then he's like, let's get to work. And I feel like these two speaking, that scene to me actually fell quite flat. I thought it's quite weak as an ending of the game because it's relying on M and Bond jumping back and forth. But I feel like that relationship just isn't really there for that to be all that like impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really interesting that they actually did the scene that way, where I thought it would have been a lot better for Bond to just be by Greenway's grave and get the call and then deliver it like from M and maybe deliver a line or something. I don't know. It's like they're trying to have that moment at the end of Skyfall where Bond walks in and is like, let's get to work. Lots to do, Bond. Like they tried to do that and it just didn't work. And I don't think it worked because I think M was just kind of a weak character where all she does is like, he might not play by the rules, but I like him. And then she does that for 15 hours. And then it's like, I've got the PM on my butt, but I like you, Bond. Do your thing. And it's just that. And you're just like, well, why do you actually like? I don't know. It's just like they had plenty of time to establish it, but they didn't. And it kind of meant for me that final scene was actually quite weak because it did kind of rely on. I guess I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but it kind of made me realize that Bond hasn't really gone on that much of a journey to make him James Bond. And it was a really interesting moment because, like, the moment that made Bond Bond in Casino Royale is that his, like, love of his life dies. And then, like, after that, after the love of his life drowns and betrays him, then he's like, yeah, I'm James Bond. Yeah,
coldless, cold-hearted, killing machine.
Yeah, like, he's like, he can do all this stuff, but now he's kind of gone through all of this, and M's all just like, oh, about trust. It's like, good, you've learned your lesson then. And like, it's harsh, but that's the character. Where this guy was just like, well, Greenway was pretty cool, but I guess he's dead. And then M's like, back to work, and he's like, yes, mom, ba-da-ba-da. It's like, well, it's not actually like, the character is built in tragedy, and it's kind of there with Greenway, but the fact that, like, he feels disconnected from it, there's no, like, growth. It's really weird. There was just something about that moment where it's like, I think they did a good job with Bond throughout the whole game. But after watching that scene, and then they like have him do the bullet, you know, the walk on and the bullet, I was like, no, wait, hold on. No, there's a lot more. There's meant to be a lot more here. Like, he's supposed to be a miserable. Why? He's still got his soul intact. That's not James Bond.
Give it time.
No.
Give it time. He's still young. He might have a bit of soul left.
No, get rid of it. Absolutely. But yeah, like, that wasn't just an M problem, but M was definitely a part of that problem because they were relying on that relationship and the back and forth to really set it. But then also it made me realize, like, actually, surely if this is an origin story, why has Bond actually had a pretty decent time of it? Or at least feels like he's had he's had a bad time, but it doesn't feel like he has become Bond because of it. When every other origin story is about how tragedy has created Bond in a lot of ways.
I understand where you're coming from. I think I would have been very surprised if the game had been like that, though, like a bit more tough and traumatic in that regard. I'm not surprised that it's a little bit fluffier than that. Just because that was a vibe I was imagining from playing the Hitman levels that I've played. It is a little bit silly. It's a little bit, a little bit. Doesn't take itself too seriously with a lot of things, and I thought I saw that in a lot of parts of the game.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily asking for it to be a Daniel Craig sort of story, but in some ways it kind of is. And we are in a post-Daniel Craig world, and if you're going to do an origin story, you kind of need to have some of that in there. Like, you gave him the scar from the bloody books, but he's like the most happiest carefree Bond we've ever had.
La la la.
Yeah, he's just having a great time. Like, nothing impacts him. He might get a bit loud. And you know, that's something I did really like about Bond in this game. He has a very strong moral compass, which I actually think is a big part of the character, or like a more subtle part of the character, and they hammer that home here. So I really kind of like that. You know, when he wants to do something, he does it because he thinks it's right, not, you know, then that's part of the reason why he breaks the rules, because he does what he thinks is the right thing to do. And I like that part of characterization of Bond in this game. It just kind of means like, yeah, a bit is kind of cut out, but you're probably right. It probably is more about just trying to tone it down from the Daniel Craig films and having this be a more big, fun Bond adventure. But it does kind of mean like it falls a little flat in some areas, especially compared to what we've had in the past.
On that note, I have seen already there is a mod to have Daniel Craig's face, Daniel Craig's head So there you go. That might be what you're after.
Do we want that?
Well, I was looking for Roger Moore, which still sadly does not exist as of recording. But there is a Daniel Craig one. So,
well, I remember Daniel Craig looking pretty horrific in the games. So I don't know if I want to see more of that.
Yeah, it probably is some dodgily stitched on head from. Could you see him in 007 Legends at any point?
What, Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
But that was first person, right? So all the cutscenes.
Yeah, but they showed it all the time.
I can't remember. Okay.
Like you had the cutscenes.
Yeah.
Like you saw him fight Jaws and stuff, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
You saw him with Tracy skiing at the beginning.
Oh.
Like you see Daniel Craig and Tracy together.
That's so
and
weird.
It's like Diane Rigg.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's where they got it from then. I don't know.
Okay, so next character, and I guess the last one would be Moneypenny, unless I'm forgetting anyone.
No, not really. No. Oh.
No, I don't think so.
You are forgetting a huge character. Actually, let's get this one out of the way before Moneypenny, because I think actually, more important. Thoughts on Ponsonby?
Wow, R.I.P.
Wait, what?
Wait, no, does he die? No, does he? Is he the one that gets killed at the end?
No.
Or is he just the one who's like all upset and flustered?
Who are you talking about?
I don't know. I thought, isn't this one of the MI6 guys, right?
No, Ponsonby is Moneypenny before Moneypenny. She's the old lady at the desk.
Oh, I was thinking of just like the MI6 people that gets like killed at the end.
Yeah, like really marketing people or whatever they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the old lady.
I don't really remember the old lady.
What?
I'm afraid.
She's she's just always grumpy, and like Bond comes out trying to do a quip, and she's just like, "I prefer a quiet office."
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I was like, oh yeah, there would be someone before Moneypenny, so there she is, an old lady.
Yeah. Well, you're never gonna say no to an old lady.
No, quite right. So okay, right. That's my Ponsonby thoughts out of the way. Moneypenny, you're right.
Great.
Yeah, Moneypenny.
So what you go for? I did Q first. You go first. What's your thoughts on Moneypenny?
What are my thoughts on Moneypenny? Do you know what? I don't really know. I did like how she was equally as young as Bond, so they have that mirroring of the story and kind of experiencing this thing together, and there is that relationship that grows between them, and I like that. And I like that she is this very constant character throughout the game. She's not just coming in at the beginning for a mission debrief and then you never see her again. She's there, like she gets involved, and lots of back and forth on the intercoms and that sort of stuff. So you hear her a lot. And I thought whoever did the voice acting for her was really good. But I don't know. The thing that I go to, which is not fair because it's only a tiny part of the game, but again, it's just that bit towards the end where she's just going to the big Thayer computer and she just gets wrapped up in this whole storyline, and I don't really think that bit was necessary. I don't know if I would have preferred her to still be in that slightly separate aspect to Bond, not in the thick of the story where Damien's there with the knife against her, and I think she does get stabbed actually, doesn't she?
No, it kind of looks like she does, but I don't think she actually.
She does.
Oh no, wait, no, yeah, she does because Q.
Yeah, Q helps her, right?
Out, doesn't she?
And I don't know if that was strictly necessary to get her that much in it, but I can see why they did it. Yeah, so a mixed bag for me, Moneypenny.
Well, yeah, again, that whole section I don't love because I just don't think you needed to have MI6 get attacked in the origin story of Bond. I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Moneypenny stuff from that side as well, but I guess I would say like this is very much a continuation of Moneypenny from the films, right? Where she's doing more and active and has a more active relationship with Bond going back and forth. And I think Moneypenny's inclusion is why I didn't really mind Bond's quips, because it felt like more, from what I remember, he was just quipping to her and just making silly jokes to her, which is like kind of a little bit different, or contextualizes it a little bit different. But I thought she was pretty solid, again, as a back and forth, again, well done. It's just, yeah, I guess she doesn't really have that scene in the same way that Q gets that scene that really cements who this character is in the relationship. In the same way that Greenway gets many scenes like that, and you see his character development. Moneypenny's just kind of there the whole time, and that's it. So really not all that bad, but for the person who talks the most outside of Bond, I guess, is probably
Yeah.
fair to say.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
no character development there, which you don't necessarily need, but for how much she's kind of involved, yeah, she's good, just a little bit unmemorable, despite being kind of always there.
I do think Ponsonby, I wish.
She could have been on the comms the whole time. She could have been.
Just making tea and complaining.
Oh, stop messing around.
Oh, where's my tea gone? Did you go and look at the tea? She had a lovely set of tea in the office.
No, I didn't see the tea.
Oh, I spent so long. I mean, I don't know what you did, but I was like, absorbing everything when it came to the levels. So when I was in the little waiting room before the padded door of M's office, I was like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? Taking so long that you just hear Ponsonby in the background being like, M will see you now, and don't keep her waiting, that sort of stuff. I loved it.
Okay, so I think it's time we switch to the gameplay.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure how to do this, because I guess the big thing is that there's a lot of it, and there's a lot of variety. So I guess you would break it down into, I guess, walkie around talkie sections, like at Q Lab and, MI6. And then kind of investigation, like big area investigations and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And then
where you get sub-objectives and stuff like that.
Yeah, where you can wear disguises and you're trying to get somewhere and you're just kind of walking around. Investigations is maybe not the perfect word for it, but I think it's the best I've got. And then like actions, then like shooting sections where you're more straight out shooting, and then vehicle sections, and then I guess like set pieces, like other set pieces. So it's kind of hard to break down. But I guess I would say initially, like, yeah, in terms of like the variety you would need for a Bond game, yeah, ticks all the boxes. Absolutely. Like the way it felt, all the different kind of types of gameplay, the way it jumps between them. I think it's fair to say they nailed that in terms of what you would expect out of a Bond adventure.
Yep. They had the Q watch. They had the little. Well, I could go into more about the gadgets, but let's just say for now, yep, it's covered. It's fine. I think for me, what really stood out was what you just said then, where they all worked together well. And if you got them, if you did it really well, it probably felt amazing. What I mean by that is, I didn't do this because I'm terrible at games, but I did see a clip of someone in one of the levels. I think it was in the Nightfall level. And they were they clearly got into such a flow state where they had this big corridor of enemies, and it was a combination of hand-to-hand combat, shooting. They used the gadget in a couple of locations, and they did it all whilst going through this corridor, and it felt great. I'm sure it felt great, but it looked great. It all kind of just worked. And when you get those situations in the game, it does feel really, really nice. And I did worry when I was doing some of the training, the combat training at the beginning. I was like, oh no, I hope this doesn't feel clunky, or I'm going to like snap in and out of it. And then, okay, now's the time to do combat. And then now's the time to do a gadget. And then now's the time to bluff. No, they all actually kind of mix quite easily. And you can go between them very fluidly. So pleasantly surprised by that too.
Yeah, I guess just on the combat, I think overall I'm quite positive about it, but I definitely had my like annoying moments. So, when you enter combat, you've got fist fighting, and then you've got shooting, and then if you want, you can kind of use gadgets and stuff. And yeah, it does overall work very well. Like with the shooting, it's all like headshot will kill an enemy, apart from ones with helmets on. And like the way you can quickly like just go pop pop and then like pick up a weapon and throw a weapon, like that feels very good.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it kind of falls down a little bit during sections where they want you to fight a ton of enemies. Not because it feels bad, I think it feels very good. And I like how dynamic the cover system is, where most cover can get shot out. So it kind of forces you to move around and use different things. Like it's very good at like pushing you in that direction. But it does kind of feel like, well, actually, I like this gun and I've kind of ran out of bullets. And like whenever it wants you to fight a ton of enemies, I did keep hitting those moments where it's just like, well, if you want me to fight so many enemies, just let me have a lot of ammo, please. So when it's like smaller missions where you're fighting like 5 guys and you've got like or 5 to 10 guys and you've got very few bullets, it feels super good because you're just picking up different weapons, you're trying different things, you can shoot the environment, you can use different gadgets, you can do all that stuff, and the headshots feel amazing and like you can pop them very cleanly, and that just all comes together very nicely. But then there are sections where you are like fighting 20 to 30 enemies, and I'm like, well, I fired all my bullets again, and now I have to go and clumsily try and find those. So again, it wasn't a huge problem, but I definitely hit those moments where like the bullet balancing was very good for most combat, but there are times where they're just like, no, we just want you to shoot a ton of guys and that's all you're doing. And those ones I felt like maybe they could have just given me a bit more ammo so I could just keep engaged in the combat more than I, at the level they wanted me to, clearly, because it is very compact focus areas.
Joe, what? Actually, you saying that, I've got a question for you, because talking of the gameplay and the combat, there was really only one section of the game where I got frustrated and just sort of, I don't want to say rage quit. I did. I rage quit. I did. Because I was just getting frustrated, and I think it's just because I didn't really understand. But I want to know your reaction to it, because I think maybe, I don't know, is this maybe an area where this would be applicable to what you're saying? It's the bit, I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was after the museums. There's like the Web Industries Museum for their anniversary.
Yeah.
And there's a certain section where you're going through what I guess is like a museum hall, and there's just screens everywhere. Like the whole room is covered in screens, and it's very much set up to be. Well, There's the problem. I didn't know what it was set up to be when I entered that room, and so I kept on trying to be stealthy because I was convinced surely they must let you be stealthy in this bit, and maybe they do. And I'm just really bad at games, but I spent so long trying to play the way I wanted to play and stealth past all these people, and it just would not. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it through a combination of like people were just patrolling and seeing me, or just weird cover and mistiming things, and I got really frustrated. And then I realized, I came back to it the day after, and I was like, all right, let's just try shooting everyone. And what do you know, that was easy. Like first time, just kill everyone. And I was just like, oh, that's a bit of a shame that it didn't really work that way the first time.
Yeah, so I did that the first time, but I to me, when I entered that room, I was like, oh, this is one of those action rooms. Because there are just sections where you're like, no, you just need to kind of kill everyone.
Yeah.
Which does like I totally get what you're saying. And I think it's fair enough that it does occasionally just like, no, we are going to completely abandon this whole choice. And I think that's totally fine. But I think it needs more balancing it needed a bit more balancing for that to kind of make sense. Like I think future areas are better at that. Like how when Greenway is sniping and protecting you, and there's just a ton of guys.
Yeah.
So I feel like that sort of section is very obvious. Like, okay, he is going to be sniping people, so you need to get in there. So that is like much better, set up, so you know what you're doing. So maybe that one needed a little bit more work. But to me, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's that type of section. There are just certain times where it's like, no, we just want you to go all out. And it mostly works. It's just I wanted a little bit more ammo. And it's quite interesting, actually, with the action, because I think, before this game came out, the gameplay trailer showed Bond on the airfield, and that was the shooty section where you are running through and shooting, trying to get to the aeroplane to jump on it. And that was their showcase of like, here's a driving section, and here's a shooting section, and then here's the plane gimmick. And I was kind of like, okay, that section didn't look great, so let's see how they made improvements. And actually, it kind of sucked. I actually didn't like it at all. But I would say it was probably the worst action section of the entire game. And every other action set piece was a lot better than that one, which made me think, like, why does this suck? Like, why, like, this just feels like they kind of got a bit locked in. But running across the airport with like no cover and limited guns, and it was super focused on like shoot the explosives, but you have to run through. It felt terrible. But then I felt like all the other sections were way better balanced in a way that I could enjoy way more. But just actually playing that section is like, it looked like it sucked, and it did suck. But luckily that was like the worst part of the game in terms of action, which just made me be like, how was this shown? How was this picked? It sucks. Like, why didn't they improve it?
I kept on trying to. I swear in the gameplay back in September for that section, they kind of showed that you could do something cool with the cars. Like, I don't know, set the petrol and then the fire and explode or something. Or maybe I'm just making that up. But
there was a lot of explosions. I'm not sure if it was the cars or not.
Well,
but maybe
I kept in that exact bit. I was like, oh, maybe I can do something cool with the cars coming up to me as I'm running and try and take them out in a really clever way. But I just couldn't figure it out. So yeah, I was just run a little bit, take some cover, shoot them. Oh, I'm surrounded again. It wasn't. You're right. Like, it wasn't the best bit, and I just thought, am I missing something with this? But I guess not.
But it goes back to your point, right? Like, when it kind of forces you into the action bits. Again, I wouldn't say any of them was like actually terrible. I thought that one was very weak and I didn't love it. But I wouldn't actually say any of them is terrible. But the game works really well when you can choose to do that if you want to, or if you make a mistake, then shooting your way out of it is a very viable option.
Mm-hmm.
And the shooting can feel very good and kinetic in a way you really want it to, and in a way that really makes sense for Bond. So outside of those kind of forced action sections, which again aren't terrible, just not very well balanced or thought out, I don't think. But outside of that, actually very enjoyable, very awesome to do that stuff. It just works a lot better in environments where like you are kind of choosing to do it, or it's your plan B, and you are able to like improvise your way out of those situations because combat and being more aggressive is allowed in a lot of cases.
And I did that a lot. I did that a lot in terms of trying to be stealthy. Oh, I suck at this. I'm going to have to shoot my way out. And it still felt fun. It did mean that I felt like, oh, I'm going to have to replay that bit now because I do want to do that section in a stealthy way. But in the time, I was just, let's carry on. That's great, whatever. But on the gameplay stuff, another element, which I have to talk about, one of the big things coming from the Hitman developers, is that idea of kind of the choice for completing missions. And we've spoke about some of the levels that are like that. Or heavily like that. So things like the Chess Hotel, loads of, well, even before that, actually, the London nightclub level, which I thought was a very, very good, a very good level in terms of showing a nightclub. I was like, man, this is. I mean, I've not been in a lot of nightclubs, but I was like, this feels like a real nightclub. They've done a really good job with the lasers and the lights and the music and the crowds. Obviously, that's the big thing, is it's just big crowds of people. But the real standout thing for me, having not really played a lot of Hitman, knowing about it and playing the Le Chiffre level, is just that sort of natural opening up of possibilities. And it felt great. Like, it felt great just to get that first taste of it and be like, oh, this is what the game is going to be like. You walk around and it's like, oh, you can sneak through the cloakroom, or you can climb up onto the rafters, or go talk to this guy and you'll get a hint about this. And every time those little new hints or new objectives came up on my screen, I was so excited. I thought, this is great. Like, this is exactly what I wanted in a James Bond game, where it's not just shooting and it's not just well, that's really it, just shooting, isn't it, to be honest? So you've got more choices than just shooting now. So the fact that did maintain throughout most of the game was great to me. I just love that they actually kind of went all in on that idea of the options, and it was consistent. So yeah, thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I completely agree, because for me, I don't like Hitman. I tried to play it. I don't like having a big open space where it's like, well, you can go talk to the chef at 6 p.m. and then you can go over. Like, to me, it's too much. Like, some people like playing that stuff. They like playing it over and over again. Sandbox, I guess, is the word you would use, is big sandbox. But to me, a stealth game that's a sandbox sucks, because I don't like being forced to try and do things at specific times. And I don't like it where, like, oh, I went upstairs and one guy was like, naughty, naughty, and now everyone's trying to kill me and I have to restart. to me, like a big sandbox is just not interesting. Like it's really cool the different options, but the way Hitman does it with a big stealth sandbox to me is not fun. But, and this is where I think Bond does a really good job, is that, yeah, it feels much more contained, but in a way that is much more, I think, yeah, the word you use, natural, is like the perfect word for it. It feels very natural to come across this stuff, and you can explore as much as you want and find cool things, but you actually very naturally stumble across these things in a way that doesn't feel like it's too handholdy, and in a way that makes you feel like James Bond, where you are discovering things and you are just naturally doing it while also still having a ton of choice to look around and see different things. And I think they got that balance perfect. And as someone who really likes Bond but doesn't like Hitman, I thought it was just so well designed and thought out. Where, like, sure, you can easily do the simple option. It will lead you towards doing a simple option, which is still satisfying to do. It's just then kind of up to you to kind of look around a bit more. And if you do, then you will find more cool stuff, but it will naturally guide you into that anyway, in a way that I think is very intelligent in the way that, and clever, the way you kind of find these different things. And it makes everything kind of feel good and everything else you find feel interesting as well. So as someone who doesn't like Hitman, I was very, very impressed by the level design and the way the objectives work, because it was just so organic and it was just made that very satisfying to do in the way they like breadcrumbed it.
Organic, yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And I will also say I'm very thankful that they toned down certain parts of Hitman, namely, like, hiding bodies. Bodies do still get spotted in this game, but you can't move them, which is good. Some people might not like that coming from the Hitman series, but for me, that's like a step too far into just becoming tedious. And this is just a bit more of a beginner-friendly way of doing things. I also think, just in general, the like watchers and people who can't be bluffed, and that it is a little bit more lenient, I feel like, which makes sense because it's a new franchise. It's going to have to appeal to new people. That it's not going to be just fans of Hitman and who are used to stuff like that. So for me, being the scrub that I am, I appreciated that I was able to get away with a lot more. But I will say, in general, this is one of my notes, is I do think the game, even on regular difficulty, like the one it just defaults to, was actually quite easy. I thought the game overall was actually very easy. Now, I don't know whether that was necessarily a bad thing, but I was just surprised at how little I was kind of challenged with. That's not me bigging myself up as a gamer. I'm a terrible gamer. So I just thought, oh, that's kind of interesting that this was normal difficulty, and I found it quite easy.
Yeah, that's interesting. The word easy never came to mind, but there definitely was a really nice flow to it, which I think was tied to the difficulty and was very intentional, where you're not supposed to get stuck because it is a more cinematic, narrative-led experience. So they made sure the difficulty doesn't really get in the way of that.
Yes.
So to me, it did make sense, and I think it flowed very well and it worked very well. But yeah, it never really felt. I think you're probably right. It was a bit easy, but that never really struck my mind because it was taking me on this journey. I guess it was going from scene to scene, and it never felt mindless. I guess it never really felt mindless at any point. So I guess, yeah, it does lean a bit easy, and it's definitely easier than Hitman. But the goal was clearly very different because it's trying to tell a story. So it is balanced in a way that it allows that story to keep moving in a way that isn't frustrating. So I thought that was kind of very well done. But yeah, if you're looking for a more hardcore experience, well, I guess you can try different challenges or whatever. But yeah, this isn't quite that, but it felt very intentional in that way.
Yeah, I don't know what the high difficulty is like, but there is that. And you're right.
Do you not?
The challenges, I've only just started some of them, and some of them are fun challenges to do, and some of them are just, that they are a challenge. Try not to get caught or taking out a certain number of people or not taking out a certain number of people. So that's where you go to for that sort of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, but the challenges are interesting because I was keeping an eye on them the whole time, and some of them are very easy and simple, but I was a little bit disappointed by the challenges because they are just like, do this section stealthy, do this section more action, or then like do this section where you're like, I can't remember how they call it, because there's like assault and then ghost, and then there's
Oh,
like another one.
pacifist is one of them, and
Yeah, where you like knock people out. There's one
yeah,
where you kind of like you don't get spotted, but you still knock people out. And so many of the challenges in the game were just doing that for every section, and it got a bit tiresome. So me personally, I have zero interest in like completing all the challenges, even though some of them are really cool, because some of them are just like, oh hey, you did this section one way, you can actually do it a completely other way, and here's a challenge that you can go and unlock to point you in that direction. So I think that's really awesome. But to me, being like, do this one bit without anyone seeing you, that's tedious. That's not interesting because that's more of a play style sort of thing. And it basically means you have to play all three play styles for every single main enemy section of the game. And that's just not interesting to me. So I kind of won't be following up on that, unfortunately. I wish they were a little bit more deliberate in terms of like, okay, for this section, we actually came up with a really cool way that you can stealth for it. So for this one, it's going to have a challenge. But for this other section where you could technically do it, we're not going to do a challenge because it's not quite the same thing. But instead, it's just a blanket across the board. So it does mean like I did keep an eye on the challenges because it points you towards some cool stuff. It's just I have disconnected from it because I don't want to literally play it 3 times in 3 different play styles because I don't want to do that. That's a bit too tedious for me.
yeah, that's fair enough to be honest. Because I've only where am I up to now? Aleph, I think, trying to do the challenges, and already I'm just finding myself focusing on the more fun ones, or the ones like you say that show off a different bit of the level. Like there was one where you can put on a disguise for a section of it, and I didn't know that. I didn't do that bit on my first playthrough, so that was really good. Or yeah, like the kind of sillier ones. They're the ones I'm going for now, but those, yeah, I'm just not good enough to do those stealthy ones. And then I also think the game is not particularly good or well set up to do these challenges. I don't know. Same thing with the kind of rewards and unlockable stuff. It just seems a little bit clumsy and a bit clunky to have to do this. I know that you can go straight into a chapter straight from the menu, and that's good if you want to just do a specific part of a level to get a challenge complete. But other things, I just think it's like, oh, like for example, in the Aleph one, there's a challenge to get $140,000 before going and doing the rest of the thing with Greenway. And so I started to do that. But it turns out that you have to do it in a very specific order so that the last thing you get pushes you over 140,000. If you get below 140,000 but above 100, the game basically like soft locks you on that challenge and you have to continue with the level. And I was just there thinking like, well, why? Why did they bother doing it that way? It just seems a bit stupid. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. And I do wish, and I really do wish, I know this might be a little bit too much in terms of making it too easy, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something you could turn on. I wish it would tell you what is in the level to collect still. I don't want to have to go.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I don't want to have to go onto a website and find out exactly where something is. I wish it would just say, like, you've got 3 of the 5 collectibles in this level, and I would look for them. But when there's just nothing indicating it, you feel like you have to go and look them up. So, a few gripes of that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. Yeah, I think like the checkpoint system is great, but you do kind of want a little bit more. As you say, like nowadays you would just Google it. So it seems weird. Like I feel like once you beat the game, then you should unlock that sort of like where you're missing collectibles. So you can go back and find them. Especially because some of these are just like, well, you have to go and stealth your way to a specific area, which might mean you have to go and do a specific thing over here to unlock that area. So it's like, that's totally fine. Just like, well, if you're playing a level and you're missing something, or maybe you're missing something, then you have to be like, okay, well, do I need to go back in there? Do I need to go get that disguise over there and then come all the way back around to do this? Or is that completely wrong? So yeah, they could have definitely smoothed that out. And I definitely, just to wrap up the challenges, I definitely would have liked there to be less. I feel like the older Bond games did this better, where they were a bit more focused. Like the 007 moments were like actually a little bit more focused, where you would get one for being stealthy for this specific bit. And then it's like, okay, that feels good to do. But obviously you don't have to be stealthy for every section to get every Bond moment. It just did it when it kind of made sense. So I think, yeah, a little bit more guidance on the collectibles would have been nice, because I don't think I'm going to get those either. which is a shame because they are quite cool. The collectibles, I would very much like to get them all. It's just I don't want to get every single card. Like, what am I gonna like? What? Like, it feels like they were like, okay, this is like a 15-hour game, and we need to kind of give people a reason to go back and play it, which is fair enough. Again, challenges good, collectibles good. They just went a little bit overboard with these, which makes it not a very fun process to 100%, unless you just, as you say, look it up, and then that's not that fun either.
No. I will say, though, I do like the legacy collectibles. I haven't found a lot of them yet, but when you do find them, it's just a nice feeling, isn't it? Like, I think the first one is the GoldenEye key. Oh, that's cool. There's a GoldenEye key.
Oh, I don't think I have that one. That
do you
is
not?
cool.
Oh, that's in the Iceland level.
No.
Yeah.
Ah. Oh.
Anyway,
I want it.
I want to go back to just one more bit of the gameplay. One bit we haven't really talked about yet. Probably the weakest gameplay aspect for me. Well, definitely the weakest gameplay aspect for me, which is the driving sections. So I just wondered what you thought about them.
Yeah, this was kind of disappointing, right? I felt like they made some smart choices where all the driving is very linear and basic. So the sections that work well are where they just say, okay, you're driving a massive, a massive vehicle. I can't remember what you drive in London, the uninvited one at the end there. But there's one where you are just like a giant vehicle and you're just smashing through things. And you're like, okay, this works quite well. It feels very Bond. You're just kind of not doing all that much, but you don't have to because there's all this destruction. So some of those vehicles work quite well. But most of them where you're like driving a fast car, you're just driving forward. It's like you're playing Outrun. It's just like a road that slightly bends left and slightly bends right. And it's just so smoothed out that it does feel a bit sterile. And yeah, again, not horrible, but it is like playing the Rome Chase Inspector for like every section.
That is damning. Sadly. That's so damning, but so true, actually.
Yeah, so I didn't hate them really. I thought they were fine. I think they did their job as like an interlude, and I think the ones where they were designed to be simple made sense. But when it's supposed to be this fast Bond car action bit, yeah, they just weren't designed that way. They were just so basic that it was just hard to get invested in it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with like, I think it's a rubbish. What are they called? Rubbish lorry, like a crusher. Why am I forgetting what they're called?
Yeah, I know. Like it's garbage truck, but I'm not American.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want to say garbage
bin
truck.
lorry. Bin lorry.
Yeah, bin lorry. Yeah, I think it's a bin lorry.
So that one, and then the one in the quarry. It's like a big.
Yes,
that thing. Those ones. Yeah, like you have that big bulking feeling where things are just smashing around you. I do wish. I get that they are just more of a set piece. It's pretty much just enjoy the show, right? Sit back and enjoy the show. Hold forward. Part of me does wish there was a tiny little bit more of an interaction, but I can understand why they didn't do that. I also wish there was a tiny bit longer, but again, I can kind of understand they're just meant to be little palate cleansers before the next level in a way.
But it's so weird. What I don't get here is like, okay, so Everything or Nothing had dedicated driving levels. And they didn't really need to do that, right? They didn't need to do these like big maps where you're driving around. It's fine they didn't. But like Agent Under Fire and Nightfire had more linear to the point levels, but felt way more exciting than this. There's just like an element missing here that those games got right, which makes it even more damning that these guys were missing something. Because I feel like I could still boot up Nightfire and play the Aston Martin levels and have a great time, because they don't necessarily do tons more than what First Light did, but they do enough more to make it exciting, where I wouldn't really describe any of the driving sections exciting in this game.
I agree. And the thing so those shorter ones with the big bulky stuff, explosions, I can sort of forgive that. The ones I can't forgive, and I think there's a lot more like what you're saying, where it's just flat out boring and it shouldn't be, there's no excuse for it, is, the slightly more interactive ones. And the one I'm thinking of, I know there's a couple, but the one that's in my mind right now is the end of the Antarctica one where you're in a boat and you've got a gun.
Oh, yeah.
And you're chasing, what's her face? Isola. It's just so bad. It's so bad because you have this weapon. And I was thinking, okay, now we've actually got a weapon. there's going to be more to this. It's actually going to feel a bit more satisfying. But it still had this same sense of like anything I did didn't really matter. There was a disconnect between what I was doing and what the game was showing me. And there was all these opportunities to make, I don't know, to me that's a really cool concept, in this boat, going around the waters of Antarctica, all these icebergs and things. Maybe you could fly off an iceberg and, I don't know, smash through stuff. But it just really fizzled for me. It just fizzled out. And that's kind of, the driving or in the boat, whatever it is, just not good overall. And it's funny because you kind of called that way back in September. We both said, oh, that bit kind of looks naff. And they pretty much didn't really change much.
Well, that's where it's like, surely they took that feedback and kind of would improve it. But like, no. Like the section we saw before, like in September, it's still the same. It still sucks. You are just driving forward and that's it. But yeah, I completely forgot about that boat bit. But it's so weird because again, it's so visually impressive. It's such a visually impressive game, and the and just like all the environments and the fact that you're going to so many countries and they portray it so well, it's breathtaking at times. It is incredible. So it does kind of mean like the slow driving sections are a lot better than the fast ones, because you just get to relax and see everything. Like the beginning of Vietnam, I think there's a boat section.
Oh, yeah.
Can't remember if you take control, but it really, the strength of these boat sections and the vehicle sections as a whole is when you're going slow, because it lets you absorb the story, you get some dialogue, and you get to see everything, and it looks incredible. But then when it's going quickly is when like, well, actually there's kind of nothing here. So it's like the best vehicle sections are the slow ones where there's no action going on, because you get to enjoy the scenery and the atmosphere more.
That's so Bond, isn't it? Yeah. I want the slow car scenes, please. Yes. Give me the slow stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of a shame,
so while we're talking about scenery and stuff, I'm curious, do you have a favorite level in the game?
I was going to ask you this, actually. I do have a favorite level.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily for the visuals. I think it's more like just a combination of everything. But
yeah, sure. The standout chapter.
The standout, I think, for me, story aside, I know we've said about the story being a bit weird around this point, but I love the Slovakia hotel chess match level, because to me that was just riding on that high of like, oh man, the nightclub. This is like this open sandbox element, and then you've got that bit, and obviously I was expecting it slightly from the gameplay, and you saw Bond being the chauffeur, but the hotel is huge. It's huge, and there's so many aspects within it. There's a laundry bit, which you mentioned earlier. There are certain sections where you can choose to do things. You can choose to do that bit entirely stealthy. You can choose to shoot your way through. There's all the different ways of going into the rooms. I still think there's a few others that match that, but I think for me at the moment, it's the Slovakia hotel. I love that.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, I mean, I guess for me, it is just once you get to the end of it where that place blows up, the story's a bit weird, and then you have to do a driving section that's not great, and then you do an action section that's not great, and then the stuff on the plane's okay, which kind of brings it down. But I do agree, everything up to that point is just, especially because, you can just go around as Bond doing this stuff. It feels like it's the game really finding its feet and showing what it can do, which is very, very cool. I think for me, I would probably go Time to Die, Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think it looks fantastic. I think, you've learned a lot of the mechanics by this point. So Bond gets to pretend to be someone, John Smythe, right?
I was looking forward to talking about this. This is lots of references. I don't know. I definitely didn't catch all of them, but sure didn't catch all of them. So many of them. But there was one that I, of course, did catch, and it was that one, St. John Smythe from A View to a Kill.
Yeah,
that put the biggest smile on my face. I love that.
Yeah. But I think I liked Vietnam a lot. Yeah, because it had that really great moment where you're exploring and you're figuring things out, and that feels good. And then I really liked seeing Bond in that outfit where it was the white kind of tux, but not the whole white tux. That is like a new version of it.
Oh
And I
yeah.
thought that looked fantastic
Oh, and
on
the
him.
bow tie. You're on
And
the
the bow
phone to
tie, he has
Q.
to learn to he has
Oh,
to tie his bow
that was
tie, yeah.
good. Yeah, I like that bit.
And then it felt extremely Bond to me. It just felt so Bond. That whole section, all of Vietnam felt extremely Bond in a way that I was really enjoying. Where again, at first it's him pretending to be someone, being all smooth, all cocky, chatting at women, because of course. And then that going into him looking very suave, but then him having to then go into combat dressed that way was just like perfect. I love seeing him do that and then getting a lot of actions and stuff like that. So I thought Vietnam was kind of probably fantastic across the board and kind of ticks all those boxes for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could have easily said other levels because it's basically those particular levels where they start out as a big open sandbox sort of thing. I really liked Aleph with the marketplace. I thought that was a really good vibe. I probably towards the bottom of these sort of levels, but still, I did enjoy it. Was the web museum because similar aspects to the chess match stuff where you've got huge space and you're exploring it. But yeah, all those levels I really loved. So there was just a lot I really, really enjoyed. And I know I've moaned a lot about some things here, but it's out of love. And for the vast majority of my time playing this game, I had an excellent, excellent time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, I don't think there's any real bad ones. For England, the final level in MI6 was probably my least favorite. But we got Wave of the Future, Antarctica, before that, which was like the base. And again, just really visually impressive, which was really cool. So there's definitely something in all these levels that I could point to and say, yes, that's really cool. But going back to the bow tie 1 second.
Yeah.
Because something I did, and I'm guessing you probably didn't, but I'll be curious if you did. One of the very first things I did when playing the game is because, you have settings. You have a lot of settings nowadays. So you can just pause and change things. So one of the things I did at the end of Iceland was that I turned off all the quick time event stuff straight away.
Oh, okay.
Where you have to like mash buttons and hit certain things. I was like, I hate this. I just want to watch a cutscene. I don't like this randomly coming in. And it wasn't that they were overly difficult, but they were just a little bit like tricky that, or you had to pay attention and get stuff done.
Yeah.
So I really didn't like those. So I turned it off straight away. But it kind of meant scenes like the bow tie scene. It kind of like pauses for a second where it expects you to do the prompt, but then it doesn't. So that whole scene and quite a few others were quite awkward because it doesn't naturally just do everything. It kind of like gets to the point where there's supposed to be player interaction and then it auto completes it and keeps going. So that scene was actually a little bit awkward to me because I didn't do any of the prompts because I had that turned off.
Oh, interesting. Well, I can't think of was there any other time where it stood out like that? I can't think of some
There's
of the
quite
fights?
a few, yeah. Like like a lot of the fights, you kind of see that where like Bond's fighting someone, and you can see the moment where like, especially against Damien, where like he's supposed to be like attacking him or fighting back as he's being choked, and you could very obviously tell it's like, okay, this is when I'm meant to be pressing a button, and it looks a bit strange. I mean, I'm very happy they gave me the option, and I'm very happy I used that option. I'm just like, for me, it's like, this doesn't add much. This does not add anything to my immersion. Turn it off. I just want to watch a cutscene. A cutscene should be a cutscene. This is not 2014. Please don't. But they let you turn it off, so that's something.
Yeah. Going back to that bit with the Wave of the Future, the Antarctica level. Thoughts on, because this bit really, to me, just kind of came from nowhere. I enjoyed it, but I was like, this is a strange choice. Controlling the big ball.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I don't know. It was the future. It was Bond's got his Bond ball. The Thunderball, as they call it. Yeah.
It's just like, oh no, we got robots we need to kill, but they're going to be really strong, so let's just use a giant ball. Recce. What was it called? Recce?
Rare Recce, yeah.
Just thought that was
I thought that was fine. I don't know. I think, I guess enough silly stuff had happened, really. I don't know, it was fine. There was definitely a real effort in this game to bring in gadgets a lot more, which I think overall they did a very good job with. Although I'll be honest, a ton of times it's like, assign your gadgets. It's like, just give me the gadgets I had before, dude. I did not experiment much with the gadgets. I was like, I want the one that makes them sick.
Yeah.
I want the ones that like make like sappies or whatever. And then eventually you unlock like a missile dart. And I'm like, yep, I want that one as well. And I actually got a little bit annoyed every time they were like, reassign all your gadgets. It's like, well, I don't remember where I put the sick one. Did I put it on square? Can I just... So I didn't love that. But like, I thought the gadget was extremely well done. Just personally, like I stuck to the ones I liked and I didn't really experiment with most of them.
You're right. I mean, I didn't really either. I definitely didn't use... There was like a camera one that does like a shockwave.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever used that because it's just...
I think I might have done because there's a challenge maybe, but that's about
right. Yeah, see, I probably will have to. I do wish... That's another thing. I mean, the gadgets were overall very good and there's lots of opportunities to use them. And sometimes very silly ways of using them as well, which I appreciated, like dropping something on someone or... I think about that Malta training one where there's these targets and you can just make them flap out and whack people. It's just so stupid. Like this little bit of wood just sends someone flying across. But yeah, I didn't think, or I was expecting it to maybe be like 2 more gadgets or at least slightly different gadgets. It was always just something that shot out and disrupted them, or yeah, some electrical thing. I don't know. It really wasn't an issue in the end because I did what I needed to with the things that was provided and I still had a good time. But I was expecting there to be a couple more. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the gadgets worked because they were integrated very well with the rest of the gameplay, right? Like there were certain spots where you're like, use a gadget, but for the most part, it was like you have the option to use it if you want to.
Yeah.
So that made them work. But for me, it really was like, well, you have the bleach ones or the food bio ones, and then you have your electric ones, and I only really need one of each. And that's, in a way, that's good because it means they're not blockers. It means you can kind of do things your own way. And if you want to go back and do more, and there is this really difficult thing, right, where Daniel Craig and that Bond stripped all this stuff back. So they were kind of in a difficult position of like, well, we want to bring it back, but we can't really go as far as you maybe would want. But they went quite far. So considering like the difficult position they found themselves in, like, yeah, I think they kind of found a good sweet spot there, and I would expect a sequel, Second Light, to go further with it.
Oh, yeah. And actually, just with the whole gadget stuff, I know we spoke about how the last level with the MI6 attack is probably one of the weaker elements, but it does have a very fun section with that QLab attack, where it's basically the game has built up to that point where it's put you in QLab quite a lot, and I really liked QLab in this game. I thought they did a really good job blending the Daniel Craig look and the silliness of the older films, because that silliness does come through with this attack scene where you just have, you've got Q's watch, so it's got unlimited battery power and you can just trigger everything, and you can send jetpacks flying, and you can, like, the ghetto blaster is in there, I think at some point you can trigger that. So it's good that they introduced it early on, and you go there and you sort of get hints of that element of the silly stuff. The phone booth is in there as well, and then finally there's a payoff at the end where you can use it all. I had a lot of fun with that bit.
Yeah, it definitely cements itself on that more city side. Not like crazy city, but like it allows itself to get city, like even through some of the other moments as well, where like Bond has been captured with Greenway and they're floating above. Is it just alligators or crocodiles?
Oh yeah.
Like there's definitely like, maybe we should have talked about this during the story, but there definitely is very much like all the Bond kind of scenes are in this game, which is quite fun and quite satisfying to do. And I guess that is also one of them with all the gadgets and stuff like that. I didn't do the challenge, sadly, because there's like a challenge to not be seen, I think, and you're meant to do that with all the gadgets. I sadly didn't do it. I tried, but it was definitely fun. Yeah, I think you have to it's not with the gadgets. I think it's like kill everyone without being seen, and you do that by activating all the gadgets. Which again, that's a really good idea for a challenge, to just kind of do it that way. But I wasn't able to do it, sadly.
Yeah. And even the bit straight after that kind of follows on from that sillier side of things, where you finally get the Aston Martin Valhalla, and they basically just set you
Yeah,
up
that
to
was
do.
weird, wasn't it?
Well, it's just
Yeah.
like,
What was
let's
that
make them
about?
do the No Time to Die bit. It's like, okay, sure. I mean, it was good, but it was just felt like we are going to make you do this bit from the films, and you're going to enjoy it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I just thought the controls were weird. I
They
was
were.
like doing donuts in it, and I'm like, why this doesn't fit? Why can't I just like control the turrets and missiles and just spin? Why do I have to literally drive back and forth awkwardly in this small room? It didn't really make sense. Yeah, and I think more broadly, to be honest, some of like most of the Bond references are great, especially the smaller ones. But yeah, some of those more direct ones, I can't really think of any that really landed. I don't think any were bad necessarily, but I think the more subtle, layered references worked really well. The more in your face references like that, I could have done without it. Probably wasn't needed.
Yeah. The best one was St. John Smythe, so there you go. You can't improve upon
Yeah, of
perfection.
course. No, if you're going to reference a top 10 Bond film, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I put it in my top 10.
Now, if only...
I think I put it at number 10.
If only there was like an even deeper reference where it was like the hat that you wore as the chauffeur in that Slovakia level had like GT on it, you know? Godfrey Tibbett. We're talking
Tibbett?
deep cut. Or there's a bit with a recorder. Oh my God. I just want a View to a Kill the game. That's what I'm basically asking for now.
I think, yeah. Maybe for the next film or the next game.
Yeah, mod it in.
Or maybe we should just watch A View to a Kill again. Maybe that's enough.
I like your thinking.
So do you have any more? I know you've got some notes. Is there any more specific points that you would like to make before we wrap and give our final thoughts on the game?
You know what? I'm looking through my notes and I actually think we've covered together every single bullet point. So I'm very pleased. The only thing I did put here in a separate section called Other Thoughts. And this is a little bit, this is just really, is nothing, but it's just something I noticed. There's no female enemies. They're all men.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, there's no grunts that are women. How's that for a woke Bond game?
Wow, yeah.
Come on, where's the equality? Women can be evil too. Women can be soldiers.
Women? I can't remember because this was a whole thing a few years ago. I think not even just putting the woke rubbish aside or whatever. I think this was a whole thing, and I can't remember what game started doing it. I want to say Call of Duty did. That you can shoot women. I've got some great news. But yeah, I didn't notice that. To be fair, didn't notice that. But
it's
yeah,
only
you're
because
right.
in the sections where you're in like the web industry stuff or in the server room, and there's lots of women as lab, in the lab with the lab coats, but there's never any as the grunts. And it's just something that stood out.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have any feelings on this, by the way.
True.
It's not like I want to shoot women in the game. Please do not think that. It's just something I noticed. It's just they all look the same. They're like cookie cutter enemies. So that was it, really.
To be fair, that is true. Most of them, it is like the same three people
you're
shooting for the whole game, which probably is a big part of that. I guess we should mention the TAC sims.
Oh God, I really haven't even done that much of it. Have you?
Yeah, no. I did it. I did one. I thought it was like, again, it's just more padding. It feels like, why isn't this integrated into the actual game itself? Like, my most notable thing about the TAC sims is that, okay, you're in Q Branch for the first time, and someone's all like, hey, we've got all these simulations that you can do. Come speak to me. And I spoke to them, and I was like, okay, I did one of them. I didn't love it, but it was fine. Now to go back to the main game. And I was like, wait, no, I'm stuck. I thought I was in Q Branch. What's going on? And it turned out that it's a separate mode. So by talking to that woman in Q Branch, you load it into the other mode.
Oh, really?
So you then had to quit. Yeah, like it teleports you into the other mode. It quits story and it loads up TAC sims without telling you. And then if you want to go back to the story, you can't just be like, I want to go back to Q Branch. Instead, you have to quit and then load story up again. And I had to Google it because I was like, what the hell is happening? I thought this was just like naturally integrated into the game. Why wouldn't it be? But no, it's a very separate mode. It seems very Hitman. This is going to be like the Hitman World of Assassination rubbish that I don't care about. So like, fair enough, I guess, to pad out the game, but like, yeah, zero interest in it. And any like, I think future content is going to be through this system. That's nice. I don't care. I won't be touching it. It's there for those who like it. No, no, thank you. No, thank you.
I do get what you're saying. I mean, I haven't touched it yet, and I do think like when I go onto it for the first time, I'm going to have a similar sort of feeling of like I don't care about this. However, that could so very easily change if, and as you say, it's probably for future content. Imagine if in 007 Legend style they do like previous missions as a tax sim, so you're there in the nightclub of Tomorrow Never Dies with Elliot Carver's party, and it's that. Could you imagine?
I think that would be awesome, but I think that's never gonna happen.
What? Don't crush my dreams.
I think this is more about just reusing what they made. We're not gonna get anything new.
No. Probably.
Like, I think even the one they're teasing where it's like, you can drive the car, but you're just driving the car through like a remix version of another mission. I don't think we're going to get new stuff.
Oh, that's such a good opportunity, though. It's meant to be like a simulation thing.
Well, that would make the most sense. Yeah, if you're going to like do post-launch support and you need standalone stories, then yeah, but like even if it's not Pierce Brosnan, still give us these alternative things. Yeah, I would totally be down, but I just have a feeling it's not going to be that.
Well, I hope I'm eating my words soon. No, I hope you're eating your words.
No, I hope I'm eating.
And I'm proven right, but yeah, I sadly think, I don't know, maybe you're right and I'm just being too optimistic.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong too. That'll be cool. So, final thoughts on First Light. I guess we summed it up at the beginning. So I guess maybe the question is more, where does this sit in terms of like the best Bond games? Has it earned its place at the very least among the best of the best?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's one that I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer yet. Because
never mind then.
Yeah, actually just skip this. No, it's just because there's been so many Bond games that I haven't played properly, haven't played in many, many, many years, and I just feel like I would need to really revisit those before I made that claim. What I will say is I don't think there's as much replayability with this game as there might be with older Bond games, which like you were saying earlier about the driving sections, you could just jump into those and enjoy those levels. Would you do that with these ones? No. And yeah, I think that's probably until there's more content for the game, which is fair enough. It's still brand new. That's still very much the case where you play it, and then if you really want to do those challenges and stuff, you would. But is there really any other reason to? I mean, I am, because I want to try and get the different ways of doing the missions, and hopefully other people do that too. But I imagine most people probably wouldn't want to do that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there's two types of replayability, isn't there? Right? There's kind of what you're describing in terms of like there are lots of other ways to do each mission.
Yeah.
So I think from that standpoint is like the most replayable out of any Bond game. But then yeah, individual sections fall a bit flat. But I guess to be fair, something like a Nightfire, I'm not playing that every year. So even the bad parts of that game, I think, get smoothed out a bit. And I would probably say First Light will be the same. Maybe, as you say, we're not qualified to say that yet. But give it like 2-3 years if you're in the mood for a Bond game. Or if they make a sequel to this game and you're like, okay, let me replay First Light. You might still not be like, oh, the vehicle sections aren't amazing. But I don't think that would ruin the replayability as a whole. I think that will probably still stand on its own. So I think probably from that standpoint, yeah, there's kind of rough parts here, but you could kind of say that about other Bond games.
That's
so I
true.
think it does get a bit of a pass from that perspective.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit too unfair to say that. I think the other thing is, compared to other ones, I'm thinking of Everything or Nothing as a really good example of like a Bond game that feels like a film. That one in particular did such a good job with getting Pierce Brosnan and having that all-star cast and quite a good storyline and a variety of missions and levels and gameplay. And I think it matches First Light quite a lot. is First Light as good as Everything or Nothing? I don't know. I think that's just so hard to compare. It's obviously the level of polish and just where we are with video game technology these days is just worlds apart. But it probably is along the same. Yeah, I don't know. All I know,
I think it's got to be, right. Like, it's got to hit that same level. You know, we
Yeah.
can debate which one is better, but I think in terms of how good it could be, it has reached that bar. And I think it's, that's the conversation. It's not like, yeah, the conversation is, or which one is better than the other. It's not, they both achieve their goals. So I think that is it. I think in terms of the top 4 Bond games, if you had to do like the Mount Rushmore of Bond games, you would go GoldenEye, Nightfire, Everything or Nothing, and First Light. Like, to me, is very much earned its place. I'm not sure if I would say it's the best yet. I think I'm in a similar case of you, of kind of wanting a little bit more time to pass. But I think it has done more than enough to kind of earn its place alongside, like, yeah, these are the ones to pay attention to. These are the Bond games that are the best of the best. And these are the ones, like, worth checking out if you're interested in a Bond game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all I know is, as someone who doesn't play, I don't play brand new games very often at all now. This is one of those few opportunities where I bought a game on launch day, and it made me feel like a gamer. I was in my element. I loved it. As a Bond fan, I loved it. And yeah, it delivered everything it needed to for me personally, when it comes to what I expected and what I wanted from another Bond game in 2026, all these years later. So it far exceeded that. I do have qualms with it, but nothing that would nothing that would take it off that Mount Rushmore, as you say, which I quite like. Yeah. If that's the Mount Rushmore, what is 007 Legends?
Would it have to be something underground? That's not.
What's that big floating landfill thing that's like floating in the ocean? You know?
Or Garbage Island.
Garbage Island. That could be Garbage Island.
The Garbage Island. Yeah, of 007 Legends.
Yeah.
I think it's done enough, and I would kind of agree. It's like it had big expectations, so it's kind of a miracle that for the most part it met those expectations, and it was just really, really nice to play something that's very Bond, that feels very Bond, a brand new piece of Bond media. The conversation for me is like, well, actually, some of the flaws of this game is the fact that, like, you can compare it to the films and it doesn't live up to that, but it doesn't really need to because it's not a film. Like, it comes so close and it's so impressive in what it does that the conversation changes and the standards are different. Because I think, realistically speaking, if somebody who wasn't really a Bond fan is kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of in the mood for a Bond game or like an adventure game, you'll be like, play First Light. It's really good. It's really good. And a lot of the problems kind of stem from certain things just falling a bit flat, and some of the ways, the more picky stuff you could argue, because it does really come together. And I really did just have such a fantastic time with it. And it does feel amazing to be able to kind of say that, and to just have such a solid piece of Bond media release, and to have people care about it, and to get to spend over 2 hours saying how much I didn't like it for the most part.
Oh dear.
For all the story problems and stuff, but still, yeah, very, very satisfying. Very satisfying to kind of have this game come out and come out the way it has, even if it does have these problems that we've already kind of dissected quite a bit.
And also, I don't know the exact figures and stuff, but it seems to have sold very well. So I think it's been a success in that regard as well.
Yeah, I think it was already 2.5 million, something like that. I might even be high. I would assume it's higher than that at that point. So yeah, it's kind of done everything it needed to do. And it was in such a difficult position of being such a standalone Bond thing. I think ideally the games wouldn't come out like this. I don't think they should come out in this way. They shouldn't come out as there's been nothing for Bond for 5 years and it's going to be another 2 years until it comes out. It shouldn't be put on that, because if it didn't, I think I would be praising it even more. But it did everything, considering the circumstances. I think it's kind of done extremely well. But ideally for me, I don't want my Bond games separated like this, because I do care more about the films. And these, I think that's why Everything or Nothing and Nightfire feel so good, because they are amazing extensions of the film universe from that time, where First Light is more this standalone thing that just has to kind of stand on its own two legs without anything to support it. And I think that's where it kind of, the flaws kind of start shining out a little bit more, where if it did have something to tie itself to, it would be like this incredible extra thing. You know, people talk about Bloodstone being the next, like an extra Daniel Craig film. I think that game's not very good, but the fact that it is this original story that's an extension of the film universe at that time is incredible in itself. And this deliberately didn't do that and couldn't do that, but still worked really well anyway. Like, that's extremely impressive, even if it's not how I think the game should be handled ultimately.
Yep, I totally agree. So, final thing to say.
Okay.
Where can I get a 3D model of Roger Moore's head?
Well, okay. Well, there's this website.
Oh.
GiveMeMore.com.
Do I have to pay? I'll pay for the higher def one.
Do you have to pay? What do you think? They're just going to send you Roger Moore for free? Absolutely not.
Okay, second question. How do I stitch that onto Patrick Gibson?
Okay, all right. Nope. Gone too far. Cancel the game. The game's terrible. 0 out of 10. Cancel it, everything.